Well, I crawled back to my room, and then I called my wife and son. And I said, "I'm sorry." And they go, "Well, what do you mean? What are you sorry?" You never say sorry because I'm the tough guy, does everything. And I go, "I'm just sorry. I'm sorry for not being present. The money is not going to make you happy. The next business deal is not going to make you happy. You got to be happy with inside yourself." And that's where I kind of bring out, and and a lot of men who I get mostly my people are, as you can relate, is you've raised your kids, and there's a lot of weight on our shoulders, and it's not okay for us to complain or cry or say we need help. I always had a hypnotherapist, sports hypnotherapist, and I would remote view all my opponents. And so I would go to Japan and I'd sit in the corner of when they were training, and I'd watch what they're going to be doing to prepare for me.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. My guest today, Lance Gibson Senior, overcame racism as he grew up in Canada to become a world-ranked fighter, a veteran of mixed martial arts, and a coach to world champions. He spent over 30 years mastering discipline, resilience, and performance at the highest level. Now an actor in major film productions and the founder of The Fearless Way, Lance helps men transform their struggles into strength, guiding them to lead with clarity, calm confidence, and purpose. Lance, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I've got so many different things I want to talk to you about. I'm trying to work out which one to hit you first. One I'm going to ask, in a previous podcast I was listening to you, and the podcast was all about, UFC, mixed martial arts and stuff like that. But did you fight once there in Guam?
Yeah.
What year would that have been?
Wow. I'm thinking probably 98, around there.
Okay. Because we were living over that way.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I loved it. It was like heaven on earth when I was there.
Yeah. So we weren't in actually Guam. Did you fly there from Hawaii?
I flew there from Canada, actually. They had the organization I was fighting for. That's where they started holding their fights because there was a military base there.
Yep.
And a lot of, they were big fans. And the guy, he kind of did it in Hawaii, and the Super Brawls went to Guam. And then I I'm not sure if I wasn't fighting in Japan yet. And I went over there and I fought a huge fight. It was a historical fight, but just the Chamorro people, and they took me in, and I'm still friends with them to today. I'm doing business with one of the guys I met back in the day. He became one of the biggest guys in promotions in the United States, and we're still friends to this day. It's just Guam has always touched my heart.
Yeah, so we there's an island hopping flight that goes from Guam to Honolulu, and like 3 days a week, and it has 6 stops along the way, and we were always the third stop, like on this tiny little island just north of the equator in the middle of nowhere. And so we would often go to Guam to shop and the flight path from Australia. So if we were coming back to Australia to visit family, we would always have to spend a day or two in Guam on the way, And so, yeah, and it was a big shop thing for us. We'd go up there and shop and buy heaps of stuff, take it down to the freight forwarder, and they'd put it on a ship, because we had a little hotel, restaurant, scuba dive business. And
Cool.
So a lot of our supplies for the restaurant came from there. And it's just not many people go to Guam,
No. And to this day, I'll be keep walking down like Huntington Beach, California, down the street, and somebody from Guam will be Lance, and I go, what? And then we're like, this is like 30 years later, and it's like, hey, and then it's like I'm meeting these individuals around the world that I've met in Guam way back then. It's just, it was a great place. It wasn't as commercial. I haven't been back, but it wasn't commercialized. It was like a Hawaii without being commercialized back then. The water was beautiful. The culture was awesome.
Yeah, no, a great place. And they've got a lot of unusual history there too that they can't even, like there's the stones carvings, these Leyte stones and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I mean, it's not like Easter Island, that extent, but there's a lot of unknown history there too on that island. It's
Pretty cool.
Pretty interesting sort of spot. And and I just, when I heard you talk about that, I thought, that's an interesting little one. So I'm curious with all the fighting, because I've never grown up as a fighter. Like we've grown up
Mhm.
kind of different that way. I'm curious, does the fighting give you like a high?
You know, it is a high. It's like being a firefighter, going in to save lives. And it's you get that adrenaline, and it's something that you do and serve people, and it's something that you stand by. It's like an oath, and it's the same thing as a warrior. This is as a fighter. I don't even think of myself in the present tense of this world or this lifetime as being a fighter. It's almost like it feels ancient to me and my family. So we've done it many lifetimes before, but it's something that it's just inbred in us. So it's something that we just do, you know, feeds our soul.
And your father's Scottish, is that right?
Yeah, my father's Scottish, my mom's Jamaican.
And there's the odd movie around with the Scots brawling back in the day.
Yeah, between the Scots and the Braveheart and the tough Scottish, and then the Jamaicans and the Maroons, it's just like I got fighting in my blood.
So the Jamaicans are fighters too?
Oh yeah, the Maroons are one of them. You don't hear about it in history unless you dig. But the Maroons they never they brought over from Africa, and they never became slaves. They went into the hills, and they never became slaves, and they came back and actually freed a lot of the slaves, and they fought where the slave owners had to make a treaty with them because they were too fierce. And they would go in and collect slaves and bring them back and make their communities, and they built up in the mountains, and they could never be conquered. It's really interesting.
Yeah, wow. That is an interesting there's all these little bits of history around the place that you never hear about, because it's always the victor that writes the history.
Exactly.
I'm not going to tell you about stuff that I want you to hear about and make them seem a bit weak or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it's how it goes, right?
Yeah. And then because of talking with you, like I've got 4 adult sons aged between 24 to 40. And I mentioned, and a couple of them are sort of into UFC, etc. And I mentioned that I was talking to you, and they go, haven't heard of him, but we've heard of his son. And so a couple of my boys know Lance Gibson Jr.
Yeah. We had a great weekend last night.
Yeah.
So,
and how old is he?
last weekend.
Yeah. So what age is your son?
He's 30 now.
Oh, okay.
And he we were just at the UFC March 28th, and he it's really interesting, and it's just another proven thing is he won by knockout, and it's 26 years later from the same month that I fought and won by knockout by the exact same knee at 226, 26 years later. And it's like he repeated history in the same time. And it was like amazing. It was amazing. And it was just something. It was just, wow. It's just seeing that, this is written in our past, and it's just another way to say, oh yeah, okay. That's what we put together. Yeah.
So now at 30, being a UFC fighter, and I am so ignorant of the sport, I apologize. But I'm curious, age-wise, like how does that put him? Is he in his prime? Is he like what's the peak age for a UFC fighter?
Well, the organizations want to say that you're my wife's 41, and she's fighting for her 5th world title at the end of summer. So they want to make you believe that when you get past your mid-20s, you're done. And it's like, no, I'm an infinite soul. It doesn't matter what age I am. It's you define who you are. Like nobody thinks my wife could do it. But if you look at all the great champions, they all were in their 38, 40s. You have that knowledge, you have that wealth of wisdom, and that's where they are. They just don't, it's not good for the business because they want the young guys who will fight for cheap and this and that. But you get if you look at most of the champions, they're mostly in their late 30s, sometimes 40.
Well, you look even at surfing. Are you familiar with Kelly Slater?
Yeah.
Well, like in his late 40s, 50. I'm not even sure how old he is now, but he's probably 50 now. Like, phenomenal. Like, just he's whipping it up with kids that are like half his age. And,
Right.
you know, and I'm not sure in the last couple of years, again, I live very close to some of the beautiful beaches where they have all the surf comps. Just they're like 25, 30-minute drive down the road, but I was never a surfer. And so I'm not up with the latest, but yeah. And I was watching that, the Smashing Man movie with The Rock the other night. And, you know, at the beginning of it, he talks about, you know, the mindset, you know, you can be a flashlight or a laser beam, you know, and he had a real good little analogy there at the beginning of it. And it's mindset. And obviously at the beginning of his career, he had the mindset, and then, you know, a few things messed his head up in that story. And so yeah, like you say, and because, you know, the guy who's 22, 23, his body's fit, but his mind's reckless. There's no perfect time for us, is it? When our bodies are like extreme, our minds just haven't got a clue. And as we get the wisdom of the age, because I'm 62 now, and as we start to get the wisdom of the age, I'm thinking, I actually know a little bit more now than I did back then. And geez, I did some stupid stuff back then. Like I was stupid stuff, and I did some really stupid stuff. And now, gee, I wish I could, you know, you wish you could have the ultimate body and the mature, you know.
And the maturity and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
Little wisdom, I guess. But it's like, yeah, I know. You know, you get the odd ones that are very smart. And my son's been pretty smart from the get-go. I've raised him from that in it. So he's been pretty intelligent. And if you ever get a chance to hear him speak after on an interview or after a fight, he's different. He's different than a lot of the fighters out there, and he comes from he speaks from faith, from spirituality. He speaks from humanity, and it's great because unfortunately the sport we're in, that's not who the fans are. That's not who's really watching it. And it's, you know, and to be who we are, it's hard. It's hard to have fans like this, because it goes against everything we stand for, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. And I know my podcast, I'm out trying to teach men to develop their intuition. And I've had, you're familiar with David Goggins, I assume?
Yeah. Yes.
I've had his older brother, Trunis, on the show. And actually, I got to meet David that day. He was visiting, and so Trent called just before we started recording. He said, "I got a surprise for you, Doug." And he called him over, and had a 10-second chat. How you going? And so anyway, I did a little short one day on YouTube. And as we were talking earlier, before we started hitting record, you know, like technology is not yours or mine's, you know, expertise. And so I've made this little short of the thing, and I put it on YouTube, and I've just simply asked Trunis in the little short I did you read your brother David's book? And, you know, so it's got David in it and Goggins and da-da-da. So it comes up. So it's had like 250,000 views. Oh. And it's had a lot of comments. There's thousands of comments on it. And some of them are from people who don't normally listen to me, obviously. There's some, as we'd call in Australia, there's the odd bogan comment on there. Yeah. And you're thinking, that's not a nice thing to say. Like, how did you even get that comment out of that 45-second short video? Like, what? Right. How did you come to that conclusion? Like, where is your head? So I get what you mean, like your fan base of the people who like to watch that. Yeah, unfortunately they're vibrating at a different frequency, and it's a little bit lower. And in the fans, like, you know, we've had to deal with a lot over the years. Just my wife being a 4-time world champion, and it's just these people get online and there's a lot of hate in them, and they're not very happy with themselves, and and that's their job to try to do things like that. And it's like, you got to have tough skin, because there's a lot of performers or fighters out there that the internet gets to them and they can't. It's too much. Yeah. So I take Junior off Instagram and my wife off Instagram or any of the social media before the fight, at least a month and a half before, and I let them come on and they come off, and so it's an energy that can drag you. Yeah, because if you live your life by it, I just, you know, there's so many people out there. There's betting, and when betting's involved, it's even worse.
And it's like we're humans, you know what I'm saying? Just, yeah.
When we get off this call, I'll try and remember to forward you through an Instagram video a friend sent. And as a friend here in Australia, he's got a couple of boxing world records and stuff. He forwarded me a video yesterday, and it's from the UK. And it's this guy goes up and knocks on the door of the house, and the guy sort of answers it, and he's in his dressing gown robe sort of thing, and he says, "Are you, it's some ridiculous name, whatever it is, from his Instagram handle name, And he goes, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "At 3:47 p.m. on this date, did you say this about this fighter?" And he goes, "Yeah, like I could beat that fighter with one hand behind the back and one eye closed, And he goes, "Oh, okay, we've got the right guy." And then he looks around at the truck out in the street. "Oi, in here." And that fighter gets out of the back of the truck, comes over and like woofs into him, like gives it hits, puts him to the ground. And it's like,
Yeah.
thought you said you would handle him with, and you haven't even got one on your back, And then they go up to another one and they go like, "There's not one female boxer out there that I couldn't beat with both eyes closed and one leg tied up," and all this sort of stuff. So then they, "You said that?" Yep. So they get the female boxer at the back of the truck. In she comes, whack. Only that was true. If only they got their wish,
Right? I know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I've heard you tell these stories on other podcasts where you've gone through different things in your life. And because, like I say, like you and I, there's certain things that we're on very similar wavelength with intuition and stuff like that, but we grew up very, very differently. So now, and you had a point in your life where you felt you needed some guidance, some whatever word we're going to use here, and you decided you were going to get that down in the jungles of South America.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us that story?
Yeah, it came to a point in my life, like I achieved a lot of great things, and I was I'm a caregiver for the family, and I had my dad, who's my best friend, and he was fighting cancer, and I put everything spiritually into that, trying to heal him with every thing I could think of. And my mom, and then I had these fights where my wife's doing world titles, and my son, and the business, and COVID, and all these crazy things just coming, and dealing with the grief and the pain, and just not let alone, you saw the Smash Machine, and you wonder, you see how it affected a guy who was on the big stage, and what to do is go in there and just, you got to fight, and then you got to go back into society again, and just knowing the difference, and trying to be a businessman and teach kids classes and do that and all that. It was, it came to a head. I think it was 2.5 years ago. And I was, I'm still successful, but not inside. I was killing myself. I'd come home and, I'd have a couple drinks because that was my painkiller. My body's beat up. I'm stressed. I'm worried about my father. And it wasn't like I was just couple drinks, which was fogging my spirit, fogging my vision, and that was my painkiller. That was where I'm taking my grief. I was self-medicating, and I'm still, trying and taking on a lot from a lot of people, counseling a lot of people, and counseling fighters and students and clients. And it was just a lot. And, it got to a point where, a big business deal went wrong, and it was nothing to do with what I did. It was I was dealing with a shady organization, and it kind of affected my wife's career. And it was like, when the dust settled, I was to blame, and it wasn't me. And I was like, I didn't do this, but she had lost part of her career, and it hurt me, because my whole idea was to protect my family, do my best for my family, and it was a lot of weight. And then COVID hit, and I tried to stick with the same things. I was in there mopping up, doing anything. My son and my wife, they went over and they built a farm and bees and orchard. And they said, we're done. We're done with society. We're done with everything. You can't take it. People turned into whatever they turned into in a disaster. And I was trying to do everything the same way. and having to have the masses and successful gym and this and that. And it was too much. And it got to a point where I felt like I had a 300-pound weight in the back of my shoulders. And and my dad had passed. So I'm dealing with that grief. I'm worried about my mom and all these kind of crazy things. And then my health just started I was fading away. And I just said, and I've always said, I've done some sweat lodges with the indigenous over the years. And I said, the last one I did was like 10 years before. And I said, the next time I go, I'm going to go to the indigenous in South America and Peru. And I want to do a ceremony with them, and I want to get healed, and I want to do ayahuasca, and I want to get healed with them. And I want the best shamans. I don't want North Americanized. I don't want that. I want to go right to the roots of it. And I've never traveled on my own. I've always been on with my like a family or something like that, or for fights, but I've never had to travel. And this was like going to halfway across the world. I was in pain. I had enough. And my wife was like, you got to go. And I know that counseling's great for a lot of people, but when you counsel a lot of people, and I need somebody to be able to relate to me, like he's been through my stuff and who's come out of it, not from a book. It's just not for me. And not from a book, and not from, there's nobody around to have like a similar story that I could look up to. So I needed a higher power. I needed a higher spirit to look up to and get healed. And when I went there, I got in the plane, and as soon as the plane took off, like I profusely started, and my body just let go. And now that I know I run my retreats, I see it on the people I heal, but it's almost thanking you. I profusely cried for like 9 hours in the flight. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I can't control this. And it's like, my body's telling me, thank you, and that was part of the healing journey. And when I got there, it was just everything you could thought went wrong on the way there. We got to Dallas. My flight got canceled. So they shipped us off into like a little shoddy hotel. Then I came back the next day. They gave away my seats. And then they put me in the middle seat. I'm a big cat. You put me in the middle seat. And and then they said, no, I wasn't on the plane. And then we got on the plane, went to take off, got up in the air, 2 hours, turned around and came back to Dallas again. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, is this not meant to be? And I never wanted to leave my family because I'm the protector. So I had a problem by leaving my family too, instead of doing it. So then the next day we finally got up in the plane. We had a fight over getting my seats. They gave my seats away, and I just don't understand that. And then we got there, flew into Peru. It was like maybe 3 a.m. We got off, went there, get our bags. Everybody got their bags, and my bags don't come out. And I'm like, so then it was 6 a.m. I'm waiting for my bags. Nobody's speaking English. I'm not speaking Spanish. I'm like trying to call my wife because she does all this stuff on the thing. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything from here, Lance. You're going to have to deal with it. So I only have one outfit that I've been wearing for 3 days now on my flight. And I get in there, and we finally get to the hotel, and I have the same outfit, and I was angry. I was upset, and I was complaining. And then I had to go for dinner, and I was like, okay, well, I got to get something. So I went down to the local department store, and there's not, in Peru, they're not built like me, man. I'm an athlete. I'm not built like me. So everything was small. So I had this 2 sizes too small shirt and 2 sizes too small pants on. I'm going to dinner, and I'm just angry. And then we're sitting there at dinner, and I had this view of the sunset, and it was like, shut your mouth, be quiet, and be here now. And I looked, and I go, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. Doesn't matter. None of this matters. Just be present. And that was like the start. And then my bag still didn't come for about 2 or 3 days, but it didn't matter to me anymore. And when they did come, I don't know why I packed half this crap. It was like I didn't need it. And then we went we went all the way up into the Sacred Valley. So you're up at 12,000 feet above sea level. So it's like your ears you're getting migraines, your teeth are chattering. It's tough. You get the coca leaf, and you do all this stuff, and I'm walking around. You could hardly walk a block. That's how bad it was on you. And a lot of people had problems. We're in Cusco. I spent a couple of days there. and I started getting acclimated. And then got on a bus and went into the Sacred Valley. And I mean, it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. The gardens and the places we stayed in, it was just beautiful. And then as I met the shamans, and so they didn't speak English, but they it was just the knowledge. And these were like a husband and wife that been doing this since they were children, and their children do it. And it was like just the power of the male and the female energy, and the much care they knew. It was what they were speaking and in their songs they were doing to heal us. You didn't have to speak English. It was universal language. I understood everything they were saying. It was just so awakening and so powerful that it just like I got everybody. Some people don't see anything. Sometimes it takes 10 journeys. I can't say I 100% fixed myself, but I 90% fixed myself on the first night. I had such a rude awakening that I got back to I crawled back to my room, and then I called my wife and son. And I said, "I'm sorry." And they go, "Well, what do you mean? What are you sorry?" You never say sorry because I'm the tough guy, does everything. And I go, "I'm just sorry. I'm sorry for not being present." I said, I've been showing my love in a way all these years by just doing hard work, being that gruff dad, and being that, I love you and this and that, but I'm doing these things, but I'm not being present. I'm not looking in your soul. I'm not looking in your eyes. And I'm not, I'm too busy trying to do the work, but not connect. And I just said, I apologize. And they were like, whoa, they couldn't believe it. And we all had our little cry on the phone. And then the next journey just was opened up more and more. And it was like they did some spiritual surgeries on me and healing with their hands. And it was just like, it released, like I said, a 300-pound weight off the back of my neck. And from that day on, it just changed.
Nice. It's interesting you're talking about your crying on the way there. Probably back in 2017, I flew to California and I signed up for a 5-day energy clearing retreat to learn how to do it.
Nice.
And the teacher there said to us, she said, "How many of you had changes since you signed up?" And she said, it's not uncommon at all that the moment you make the financial transaction, or you book your air ticket or whatever, there's that spiritual commitment to what you're about to do. She said often for people, changes start to occur at that point. It's not like waiting till you get to the event, and then go through the process. It can already be unfolding for many people. Yeah. And as soon as you said that, I thought of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I see it now with my retreats, the same thing. Once you decide to invest in yourself, it starts there. And I try to get people before they sign up with me a month, I try to give them a cleansing diet, a cleansing of who surrounds you and energy, and just tap into it. And I got individuals that you would never, who are actually listening to their intuition, who are listening to their dreams, who are listening to energies and frequencies that they would never even think of that before. And it's so interesting. It's just so interesting that what we can tap into.
Yeah. So the Fearless Way that you have now, it's for men?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And so how many men do you try and have there at a time?
So I like to do 5 at a time. I don't like to have a huge group. It's more inclusive. It's more of a exclusive and inclusive. It's 5 men that come to my my retreat and my property here, and they have their space, and it's a weekend to themselves, 3 nights, like 4 days of deep work, deep physical work. Because I feel that with men over the years, I've noticed, a lot of people go to seminars and this and that, and you kind of sit there, but your body hasn't moved. And it's, once I break them down physically, the barrier is gone. And that's when they come out with their true feelings. And it's so much easier after a good workout. It's just so much easier. And then the good food and I cook for everybody, and we are all organic, grass fed, and they're fueling themselves, and it's a sober weekend. There's no alcohol, and some of these guys are battling with some of those things. So it's like, hey, I can do something cool. I can work on myself to be better, but it's a sober weekend too. So people crave that, So it's been great, and I put it out there, and I see it's interesting what characters come together, and it's just a week. And by the end of the weekend, we've done a lot of breakthroughs, and just and I leave them with tools that they can go off and try, because now that's the real work. This is just a great weekend. Everybody can go on vacation, go to Peru, and do what you want to do. But now every day is a job to rewire our brains to a new way of thinking, and our bodies that are addicted to these things.
So have you got guys coming who have not necessarily been on a spiritual path before? They're fighting some sort of addiction, or something's messing in their head or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is stuff you're teaching is an introduction to spirituality, etc. for them.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's I open them up to that, to something higher and greater than themselves. You think you're just here on this earth and it's just you, and this is all that goes, where you got it wrong. You got it wrong. We're here to help everyone, love everyone, and put forward towards humanity, love. And it's I got a lot of guys, I got a lot of high functioning businessmen who are very, very successful, but they're not happy. The money is not going to make you happy. The next business deal is not going to make you happy. You got to be happy with inside yourself. And that's where I kind of bring out, and a lot of men who I get mostly my people are, as you can relate, is you've raised your kids, and there's a lot of weight on our shoulders, and it's not okay for us to complain or cry or say we need help, because we got to be tough. But that's not what it is. It's allowing you to talk to other men who have the same problem and work it out, and say it's okay to feel that way, and you got to talk about your feelings, or it's going to break. So it's a lot of my guys. Some of them have substances like alcohol or drugs and stuff like that, but a lot of them are just guys who are like, man, I got 2 kids, man. I'm getting out of the stress of trying to get these bills done. I haven't done the things I used to do. And, I come first, and then they come first, and I can't take care of myself. And then I can't do that because I got to do this. And it's like, if you're not healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually, you're not going to be here to take care of anybody. And I had to learn that lesson. And once I learned that, now I can pass it on to who's around me, who surrounds me.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, like when you exercise them physically, what sort of little regime do you run them through? Like, I'm just debating here how tough it is, whether I could handle it.
Oh yeah, you can handle it. It's I do it to everybody's level, and I always have everybody have an individual trainer. So we go on some hikes, and they're pretty easy hikes, but a lot of people don't even take the time to get out in nature. So I have a lake, 2 lakes right by my house here, like 40 minutes down the road. We get in there, and then we go into we do a nature walk, like a walking meditation, and we get in there, and then we do breath work. And, sometimes I'll do some remote viewing going forward, or I'll go back into past lives and say, where have you been? Where have you at? And figure out who you are and what's your passion on here. And then we do a meditation, and then we kind of just slow down the nervous system, come home, then we have some breakfast, and then we head down to the martial arts school down the road, my gym down the road. And I train everybody to their own level. If they've never done anything before, you got a trainer, and then he's going to push you, but he's going to push you to your level. And then I got some other people who are really good, and they get pushed to their level. But I just want to fatigue you, but then empower you and feel, hey, I'm a man, I'm strong. I can take care of my family. I feel good. I'm got strength, but it's a way to empower, but also take away the shield. And then now they come home, they're fully exhausted. And then we do these exercises on our inside on who we are or why we're here, and we have a share circle around the fire, and we kind of talk about our stories, and we listen to each other's stories, and we say, hey, that's how I feel, man. Then you kind of feel like you got a brotherhood, a bond, and then we have a night, and then they have the night under the stars. We have a spa here, a hot tub, and I'm building another sauna here, and having these kind of things for recovery. I'm actually training everybody like my professional athletes. So the way I cook for you is the same way I cook for my fighters, when I'm on the road. And this is a fight. This is a fight to gain back our real true selves. So I treat everybody like a fighter, but it's not, you don't have to be physically, you don't have to be fit. Last guy was there. I had him on a walk. I had him just hit the mitts and stretch, cause that's the most he could even do. But that was a huge accomplishment for him.
Yeah. Nice. And you mentioned the remote viewing. I'm curious, when did that start to come into your life?
Yeah, that came into my life, I would say in the 90s, but probably before. My father and mother, they grew up listening to Art Bell on the radio. And so I listened to it, going to sleep every night. And my dad was tapped into that for a long time. Bending spoons with his mind. He was always that kind of cat, man. He was the outdoors. He was really cool. He was a cool cat, man. And so I grew up with that. And remote viewing, I used it in all my fights. And I always had a hypnotherapist, sports hypnotherapist, and I would remote view all my opponents. And so I would go to Japan and I'd sit in the corner of when they were training, and I'd watch what they're going to be doing to prepare for me. And it, I know it sounds out there to most of the MMA world, but it worked. And I do it with my son, and I do it with my wife, and she's been 4-time world champion. And we go right into the camps where these people are across. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. We go in there and we watch what they're doing and 9 times out of 10, every time we go in there, we see exactly what they've done to prepare for it.
And I can remember when, video became more mainstream, I'm sure they did it in the States because they're doing it in Australia, and we would have copied, the US, like the gridiron teams and all that sort of stuff. The games, they were analyzed their opposition from all the video footage and what they were doing and how, all the plays that were, so they just sit there watching it mechanically that way with film. And you're doing it in your mind. And yesterday on my men's group, one of the guys in there, and he's from Canada as well, and he teaches remote viewing and stuff like that. And it was interesting. And one of the guys who was on the call as well, he's a boxer, and he's just getting into the spirituality stuff. And he's like, so what do you mean remote viewing? And because the boxer, he visualizes a lot. He sits there and he goes through his whole game, he's visualizing. And so it was sort of trying to take it from, well, you're visualizing stuff, you're picturing yourself going through your next fight, how you're going to handle it, how this guy's going to come at you, and, when you're going to duck, when you're going to, whatever you do in boxing. Yeah. But also, sort of trying to get him to realize that the remote viewing it's different to that. But, we're glad you've used that, and that's an excellent skill. It's not next level. It's just different. It's a different angle, a different way to do things. And so you don't have to pay for the video footage of your next opponent of his last fight. You go out into the realm and you're able to tap in and watch it. Yeah, that's really cool. And it's so cool that your dad was like that. Yeah.
He was a really cool guy. I grew up with really good parents that were, my parents, like my dad, and I think I've said this before, but another podcast is my dad's always been into that. My mom has been into that. And, but they've witnessed, it's funny, I don't, it's off topic, but they've always been into things because they've seen it. They've witnessed a UFO outside of our house. And, I was asleep and they didn't wake me up, and I'm still mad to this day, but, they didn't wake me up, but my brother, my dad, and my mom saw it. And then other people in the community ended up seeing it as well. And I remember my dad going to, I don't know who you go to try to report it, and they tried to make him sound like he was crazy. And then I was like, forget it. I know what I saw. And my dad, so I growing up and knowing that there's UFOs out there. There's other beings than us. And then I think it was 5 New Years ago. My son, my wife, my grandson, my mom, they all saw a fireball on New Year's, and I'm sitting in the kitchen cooking, and I missed it too. Again, I was so pissed off. I'm the one who wants to see it the most, and everybody else is seeing it. But it's just a reminder that we're not here alone. We're not the only ones, guys. You know?
Yeah. Actually,
More than us.
listen to, and I don't really listen to UFO podcasts hardly at all, but I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and somehow or other, it was two Aussie guys, and somehow or other the conversation came up about a UFO sighting. Yeah, I think it was in the 60s in South Australia, and it was like a UFO, like the flying saucer almost landed in a school. Like it came down that close. Hundreds and hundreds of children, all the teachers, all sat there for like 5 minutes watching the thing.
Wow.
And within an hour, the military were there. Now, in the 60s in Australia, in that city, there wouldn't have been military around like normally, you know, and they convinced all the teachers to zip their lips. You know, the kid, and it was in the newspaper and all that sort of stuff, but then it just died off big time. And it's apparently recorded as one of the largest audiences in the world. You know, there's only been a handful of these ones where hundreds of people for minutes all witnessed it and sort of basically saw the same thing. And yeah, it's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I've often wondered what's out there every night, because you know we're a little bit rural, and out where we are, there's a lot of stars and stuff. So every night I take the dog out about 9 o'clock. I'm always looking up, you know. But,
always, yeah.
wondering what might be out there. But we're at the bottom of a valley. We've got sort of like the creek running past our house, so the mountains are pretty high on both sides. So I have a limited view of the sky.
Yeah.
When there's you know a lunar eclipse or something like that, and I want to watch it, I have to get in the car and drive a couple of kilometers to get a vantage point so that the mountain's not blocking it. Because in winter we lose the sun at 3 p.m. It just goes. The rest of the town, like if you drive 10 minutes away, they've got the sun till 5 p.m. But just because of the mountains where we are, it can get a bit like that. So.
Yeah, we're on a lot of mountains too. We get more rain than everybody else and a lot of fog, but you know, I still love the mountains. But it's the same thing. It'd be sunny way down there, and we're up in the clouds.
Yeah, we get that. And our little microclimate, like we grow plums and all sorts of stuff. And for anyone who grows, you know, stone fruit, you have to have 500 hours a year or something like that of temperatures below a certain temperature. Well, if you drive 10 kilometers from our house, you couldn't even think about growing a plum tree. Like it just, well, it might grow, but there'd be no fruit. Whereas we have like a huge big crop of them just because of the tiny little microclimate that we're in. It's just very unusual, heaps more rain and everything. And, you know, got the running creek that runs through, and it's a nice little part of the world. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Just looking for my questions here I've got for you. So one thing that seems to, for me, is an issue, and I think it is for a lot of people, but a lot of people either don't admit it or recognize it, is fear. And I'm curious, with all the things you've done and the fights and all that sort of stuff, what's your greatest fear?
You know, it's funny because my nickname's Fearless, and so is my son's. And it doesn't mean we're fearless. It's the fact that we don't let it conquer us. So it inspires us. For years I didn't have any fear. I've had conquered everything, but now it's not even I don't think that I can even call it a fear. It's I guess a fear of not being the best I can be. Like, meaning at this point in my life, meaning enjoying being in the present moment. It's like, we've had many fight camps. We've had many, these are things that are going to live with us forever. These memories, we're blessed to have a wife and a son and father all doing these things, traveling the world and doing this. And I remember I used to let a lot of stress take away a lot of the moments that you sit back and think, oh, well, what if he loses? What if he wins? Hey, nothing's going to change if he wins or loses. The sun's still going to come up tomorrow and everybody goes to work. So letting that go, the anxiety and the stress of trying to control the future and be in the present, I think this is what brought me this fight in particular. I've never been so clear going out. Like my son's going on into the UFC, into the cage with 20,000 people in there. This is on live TV. He can get hurt, but I prepared him. I have faith. I know what it is. And win or lose, I'm proud of him in the guard. Nothing's going to change. We love each other. So why do we let these things hold us back? That's a fear. That's the only thing I could fear, is not allowing me to be exactly who I need to be as this in this human body on earth, and be who I truly am. That's holding back, so holding yourself, your true self back. That's the only fear I could think I have.
Nice. Yeah, very, very good. And I know years ago when I was a professional firefighter, and after 10 years, I resigned to move overseas to that little tropical island I talked about and build a scuba resort. And I had a guy come, I gave my work a month's notice that I was, leaving. And a guy came up to me who I was working with, and he said to me, Doug, I really admire what you're doing, but he goes, I've got 5 kids, and I had 3 at the time. And he said, it's just what you're doing would be too scary for me to do. I couldn't do that, just to leave this good government job as a professional firefighter and da-da-da-da. And I said to him, Bill, I hear you and I know exactly what you're saying, but I said, I've got the fear of getting to 60 and saying 2 words, if only. And that scares me far more than leaving this job, moving selling my house, putting all the money that I can get out of the deal from selling the house and paying the mortgage out, what the cash is left, putting all that into this business on a foreign little island in the middle near the equator. That fear is lower than saying if only, And so if only I'd tried. And I'm so thankful I did try. And I can now I can't rest on my laurels, because that, we moved back to Australia at the end of 2016. From that, we wound it up and moved it on to new owners and that sort of thing. But at least I've got that I tried it. I did something, Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
that's courage. That's courage. That's just wisdom and courage. And that's just amazing. People even do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that.
Well, the funny thing was, my wife and I were in our late 20s, and I was always coming up with ridiculous business ideas. Or I won't say ridiculous, but she thought they were. So I'd always run them by. What do you think if I did this or did that? Because as a firefighter, you work. Back then, we were working 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and depended what station you're at. If you're at a quiet station, you got to sleep, 5 or 6 hours through the night. If you didn't get a call. And then we would have 4 days off. And so because we were doing 48 hours in 4 days. And so it just rotated like that all the time. So we had a lot of free time. So most guys worked a second job, which I did. And I was trying to come up with a business to do, on the side. And she would always scoff and laugh. No, that would be silly. And then one day I'm reading this business magazine, and I, sitting there, we're actually in the doctor's surgery. She was pregnant with our 3rd son, waiting for her monthly checkup, and I read this business article about the business opportunities in this location. And so I just mentioned to her, I sort of turned to her and I say, hey, da-da-da-da. And she was very hormonal, like being very pregnant and all that sort of stuff. And I got her at a moment of weakness, and she goes, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. So we're in our late 20s, and I was too young and green. I'd never had a business. I'd always thought of having one. And next thing, we borrowed a ridiculous amount of money from the development bank in that country. And it took 2 years to put the whole deal together, and find a contractor to build the place and lease land and multiple visits there, and it all happened. And I look back now and I think, there's no way I could do that again now. That was so hard. But at the time, I was so young and green and ignorant, nothing seemed hard. Nothing. Yeah. It was just, there was every obstacle that came, there was thousands of obstacles every day to just, that you could stop and go, oh, forget this, it's too hard.
Yeah.
But I just didn't even realize it was hard at the time.
Yeah.
Just,
Just something you're doing.
just do it. It was actually like a fire burning in my belly, and I just had to do it. And that just overcame all of the obstacles. It was the right, and there was, we're talking here about, the podcast about intuition. That's my favorite thing. My second favorite thing is synchronicities, because they go right in with it. And mate, there was just multiple synchronicities at the beginning, like that border, and where I started to recognize, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Is that a sign? And at the time, I didn't know anything about synchronicities. I didn't even know what the word was. And
Yeah.
I was recognizing that things were all coming together in unusual ways. And I was like, wow, this could really be what I'm supposed to be doing. This, there's signs here. And I just went with it. I never even mentioned them to my wife, I don't think. Just recognized it. And then when we sold it and all that, the same thing, ridiculous amount of crazy synchronicities that, it's time to go. And it all just came together and off we went. So, yeah. So talking about synchronicities, is there anything you can think of that maybe it's happened in your life?
Oh, it's daily. I was just talking with one of my clients this morning. I was training him. We're talking about all the synchronicities before this fight, what he's going through in his life. And it's like, if we just sit back and listen and see, you'll know you're on the right path. You'll know what's right. And I know this is partly intuition, but it's also being aware of the synchronicities. So there's signs they're giving us. Our soul group or our people, our ancestors on the other side are giving us these clues. We just got to wake up and look and see them. I see them every day. But as we get more in tune, I can say at fight camp, or if I'm opening another business, or these things, they're guiding you if you listen to them. They're guiding you to the way. You just got to listen to them. And now it's every day. It's just like, I'm very aware of it. I'm always looking for them now, because it's exciting, and it's exciting in the awake world we're in. And when we go to the spirit world and dream at night, it's even more exciting. So I don't know which one I'm actually more excited about, going to bed at night, figuring out messages are going to come, or being in a day-to-day basis. It's there's so many gems out there now that when you open the veil.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about the bed, and like I sort of said earlier, like we're very opposite. I'm extremely passive, and I'm just not a physical fighter. But I think at nighttime when I go to sleep, I think I become a guardian of the galaxy, because my wife hates it. We're now actually in separate rooms.
Yeah.
And we get on better than ever now because we're in separate rooms. Because
right. I know.
Often at night, like I don't just snore. I apparently kick, jump. She goes, you've almost levitated in the bed some nights.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I rarely physically contact her with it, but my arms and legs go crazy. One night, and I never wake up, except one night I was dreaming that there was something beside the bed, and I had to get it to to stop whatever it was doing. And I actually leapt out of the bed, and I landed on all fours on the floor. And,
wow.
And of course I woke at that point and went, oh no. I wonder if she heard me. So I sort of snuck back into bed and put the covers back on. And so she's like,
I wonder where you're going. I wonder where you're going to the dream room. I wonder what you're doing.
She often said, and it's not every night, but it's at least once, probably at least twice a week. And she'll just like look at me in the morning with these ridiculously tired eyes, like I couldn't sleep. I said, was I snoring again? Snoring? I wish that's all you were doing.
Yeah, I wished it was.
Yeah. So we're fortunate now. Now the kids have moved out. We've got extra bedrooms, and so and then each morning she's incredibly happy with me now because she sleeps properly. And many years ago it was just snoring, but the last 10 years it's evolved into
Wow.
Martial arts fights, all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff going on. Yeah, so that's when I do it. Yeah, actually, when I was a kid, I was about 8. We went on holidays, and across the road was this huge big park, and there was a toilet block right in the middle of it. And for some reason, I met this other little kid. I was probably 9. He was probably 7. And we just started talking. And next thing, we climbed up on the roof of the toilet block, and we're just sitting up there talking, like looking around. And there's hardly anyone around. And then this group of boys, and they're probably there's 6 of them, probably 9 or 10 years old. And they were the locals, and we were on their turf. So they sort of ordered us down off the roof. And because the other kid was little, so they left him, and they surrounded me, the 6 of them, really in a real tight little knit thing. And they're saying, you're going to have to pay for this. You've got to fight the toughest guy. So they're sort of like, and he's faced me. And I'm like, and I'm pretty scared because I've never been in a fight. I'm super passive, and I'm like, I'm going to get the snot beat out of me. I'm not into pain. And I didn't even think. They're all sitting there and they're all looking at each other giggling because, like this was funny. They had me totally surrounded, and I'm facing the guy who I've got to fight. And he looked pretty tough to me at the time. Out of nowhere, my fist just clenched, and I just woofed him in the stomach and put him, like doubled him over. And that created a gap. And I just and they were all like stunned. They were like, what had just happened? And so I'm sprinting away and they're chasing me. And we were, Mum and Dad had rented this little apartment across the street, and I'm screaming, and they were having an afternoon nap. And when you're not really sure what Mum and Dad are doing, and I'm screaming, Dad, Dad, Dad. The dad never appeared, and they rugby tackled me right out the front of our apartment, and I'm screaming, Dad, 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 Dad. Anyway, I think they thought my dad was going to come out, so they ran off. But
they ran. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, man, I didn't even think. It just, all of a sudden, I punched him in the stomach and ran. And I'm like, where did that come from? It was like I was possessed for 2 seconds and just, man. But I only punched him in the stomach, so he would have got over that pretty quick.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So I guess when I'm cornered, I was like a caged lion. I came out like with instinct, just didn't even think.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I do have my fighting, but it's just not here.
Practicing in your sleep.
Yeah, and like to watch my kids watch. One of my sons, he pays. When Conor McGregor and these things in the years gone by, they pay $20 to have the TV, the subscription for 4 hours while the fight's on or whatever. And I'm like, Dad, come on over and watch the Conor McGregor fight. And I'm like, I no offense, but I just like, I'd rather mow the lawn. I'm not, when I was a kid, I'd played, rugby league and soccer and, we played sort of sports and all that sort of stuff. But even that now really wanes off. It's like, and particularly when we moved overseas and we didn't have TV for years. And so you lost track of all this. And when we moved back to Australia, if I watched a game of rugby league again, I didn't know any of the players. It's just like, it was like, lost interest in TV sport. So, But, if I came over there and hung out with you and your son or your wife were fighting someone, mate, I would be in my element. I thought of that earlier. I thought, dude, I've got to get over there one day when there's, and just to go and sit there. Because for me, it would be like going to another world, like, to go into an arena where there's masses of people, the cage in the middle of the thing, to experience all that, the roar of the crowd, the odd 1% bogans in the crowd, Yes.
I mean, a little higher than that.
The rest, everyone else in a suit and tie, all very sedate, but I think it would be quite an experience. Yeah.
It feels ancient to us. It's like we've been in the Gladiator stages back in ancient Rome. We've been in different lifetimes. It's home. It's home. It's like we've been it before.
You may have been a gladiator back then, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you think that you chose to incarnate in this lifetime right now at this time for a specific reason?
Yeah. I have, and I've done some past life regressions with in Life Between Lives. I've been doing that. My dad got me into that, but with Michael Newton's I did some LBLs and all those different things. And I've been warriors in the past. I've been on the winning side, losing side. I've been cheat. I've done many things. And I visited, and I've done it through my ayahuasca journeys too. I've gone back and seen my other lives as well, and what I've learned from those things. We were brought down, and it's interesting because I was telling my wife the other day, and it's because I'm here with my house and my retreat, and I can't always be with my wife and son and my mom and my in-laws over on where we have like a bit of a farm and a compound. So I spend a lot of the week here, and after I've just been going on for the last 2.5 years since I did on my journey. So it's almost half the week I am by myself. And I've been thinking about these things, and it's like, it was interesting the other day. I said to my wife, I said, we got married back in, I think it was, yes, there we go, my memory. But I say 15 years ago. And it could be wrong, could be right on the date. But as time, I love my wife. I love her eternally. But marriage is changed. The thought of marriage to me has changed in the fact that I didn't really need to get married to love this person and be with this person. I really, in the last 2 years, I think about it as we're in a spiritual contract, a spiritual partnership. It's not marriage. Marriage is just going to the, for me, going to the church or going to this event, and everybody's having this thing, and the government now says you're man and wife. No, we're two souls, and we have a contract we came here on earth to do, and we have a partnership, and we're going to here to achieve these certain things in our life. And as you can see, my wife's a fighter, my son's a fighter, and I'm a fighter. Now, that doesn't happen in this world generally. So we came down here to do these things and inspire individuals around the world that we can be good people, we can care about humanity, but we can be a warrior at the same time. And I'm here to help her, and she's here to help me, and I'm here to help them. And now when I look at some of the hardships we've gone through, like some of the arguments or some of the hard times, I don't take it personally anymore. You don't take it personally because we're here for a higher reason, to help each other. And this is what it is. So the times when I was kind of low on myself and overstressed and not my best, in this human world, we can talk about, at this time in your life, you weren't a nice person, or you weren't there to help me, this and that. And I would think I was doing my best, but I get hard on myself. I don't do it. No, because those things gave me the wisdom today. If I didn't go through those things, I couldn't be helping other men right now. I had to go through that. So I look at things that are different. Every hardship I've been through is propelled me to the top. So the way I look about relationships with people now, it's not just a relation, it's who are close to me, at least. It's not like it's not a transaction. It's a spiritual contract.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up there about the actual wedding ceremony, needing to be married. I'm a very, very part-time marriage celebrant. I think I've married 8 couples, and each one of them because I don't even advertise, it's just people here, I get a phone call and it's like, oh, we were at so-and-so's wedding and you were there, or, so-and-so told us that you're a good celebrant. So, and each one of them, I've asked them the question, do you really want to legally get married? And to be honest, half of them, like, definitely, yes, definitely, because they're doing it for immigration status. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. But the others, I've sort of said to them, do you really want the government having a say in your life? Is that why you want to do this? Like, I get that you want to commit to each other. So we can do the whole ceremony exact, and the only difference will be, there'll be 2 differences. One, I won't have to say this specific paragraph. You won't have to say one specific sentence each, and you won't have to sign anything at the end. So it will be, no one would really realize that it was different. And they're like, oh no, we want to, we want a time. So I'm like, okay, I do what they want to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So it's, and yeah, the only reason I did it is because we had not long purchased this acreage property we're on, and one of our son's best friends was getting married, and he and his bride to be asked, could we use your property to get married on? And I said, yeah, sure. And then we're sort of walking up to the spot of where they were thinking of having it and talking about it. And my wife sort of says, oh, Doug, you should marry them. And I'm like, what? Like, so I wasn't a marriage celebrant at that time. So then I had to go and study part-time for 6 months. It's actually in Australia here, it's a huge legal study process.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how much you've got to study to do it. I nearly pulled the pin and gave up. Like,
Really?
it's all legislation, and yeah, there's a lot. I was shocked. And luckily for me, because when I was in the fire service, I had a desk job for a couple of years doing code enforcement. So I was used to opening up the state legislation and referring to, so that I had that background. So it made it a bit easier. But no, and I hear you with, and I've been married 42 years. And I hear you with the actual having to go through the ceremony and all that sort of stuff, is that really necessary? And you sort of see stuff on TV, of movies from hundreds or thousands of years ago where they would do some sort of ceremony, but it was just so the local tribe recognized that, it was a rite of passage. It was a change in your life. So you had an event, you put on food, when it was over, everybody knew you were different. But, not tying it, it's and the difference is these two people are now tied together emotionally. So yeah, do we need the government, having to register our names and all that sort of stuff? I hear you on that one.
Yeah, it came to me a while ago, and I was like, I had to say to my wife, I just had to, it was bugging me. I had to say, and she was, I agree totally. So, we did it for her parents, and she's Italian, so it's an Italian thing. They want to do it, this and that. But realistically, it's no, man, we were meant to be together regardless. And it's higher, it's bigger than that. And I think if everybody started looking at it like that, you wouldn't take things so personal. You would you'd work together more. Because marriage is like, it's almost like marriage. Okay, now I'm handcuffed and I got to do this and I got to do that. And this is the person. And it's like, no, man, we're here to help each other. It's just a higher way, a higher way of thinking, I think.
Yeah, complement each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, my wife and I are very, very different people, and we complement each other in many different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. This has been a really amazing conversation, because to talk to someone who's grew up fighting, and we didn't cover that, but I've heard you tell that, because, you're darker skin, you were short, you got picked on, and, you ended up having lots of schoolyard fights, et cetera, et cetera. It's just been part of your life. But then to hear your upbringing with, your parents and listening to what you listened to and that sort of stuff, pretty unusual. And to be a mixed martial arts, UFC fighter, but then you're talking about remote viewing, recognizing synchronicities, spirituality, and all that. How many other people in your world of fighting are like you?
I really don't think there's very many. I think, my son just got off a big MMA and interview with one of the biggest guys out there, Ariel Hawani. And he was flabbergasted with what my son was saying. And he's like, we don't get fighters talking like that. Junior was talking about the frequency and the spirit. And he was just like, he was enthralled by what he was saying. And it was made me more prouder than actually the fight. Cause I'm like, we're showing a new way, man. It's just, there's not many of us there, but our light shines bright. And my wife's the same way. And I've always taught my students. So at the end of each class, I do a meditation, and I talk about get outside this earth body, and figure out who you are who you truly are as a spirit. And if you want to better yourself, you gotta look deeper inside past the skin and bones, and look what's your passion, who you want to be, who you can actually help. What are you doing on this earth to better humankind? Because if we're just going up to our next dollar, we're just doing this and this and that, you got it wrong, guys. You're at the wrong school, I say. There's many other schools out here. How did you find me? You came here for a reason. I'll take advantage of this and understand. And I say, it's more than just this physical. And I leave them with that every night, and it's interesting, and they get it. So I'm hitting the masses, and I do it with the kids too as well. And it's just one person at a time. Some people get it and some people won't. And I've learned over the years, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's an energy in the gym. It's not even about business anymore. It's about an energy. And that's I only want to attract the people that are in that energy and who want to become greater. I can't, the universe will push out the other ones, and I don't have to do anything. Push out the people who are there for the wrong reasons, or who do not want to vibrate higher. So it's not
Wait, you go.
Yeah, no, it's just, that's how I've trying to mold my martial art community. And I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years. And so I've taught thousands of individuals, that I'm touching these people that can actually spread in this crazy world we're in right now. Spread love.
Yeah, that's great. Because the different frequencies attract or repel, like you just, and if you're at a totally different frequency, you just don't even see or hear what's being said, or can't appreciate it. So it's, and like a car radio, if the analogy I give, my first car was made in 1973, and it had a AM radio. We didn't even have FM radio back when I first got my first car. And, you tune, and it had a dial. There was buttons you could, lock into channels. But if you turn that dial, you got the static in between. And when I wanted to, when they, probably when I was 20, they bought out FM radio. We had to buy new radios for our cars, an AM FM radio. And so, it's like you saying, well, if you want to come and train at my gym, you've got to be on a different frequency. And it's like, well, the radio station, if you want to listen to our really cool songs and, whatever else we have on the radio, you've got to buy a new radio. And it's like, it's the commitment. Am I happy with just my AM radio? Am I happy with what I'm hearing? And if you are, like, well, just keep enjoying that. If you want something different, if you want to move on, you've got to get it. And then, when I was a kid, we had black and white TV. And then they brought out a different frequency that sent signals differently through the air, and it was color TV. Yeah. And if you wanted that, you had to go and pay $1,000 for a color TV, and they haven't changed much in price. Inflation's helped a lot. But I remember in 1975, we had a kid in our class. Family were very wealthy. And they had 1975 was the year color TV came to Australia. And he was telling us, he said, I think he had one or two siblings. He said, our parents said to us, we've got a choice this year. As a family, we're either flying from Australia to Disneyland in California for a holiday, or we're buying a color TV. Which one are we doing? And they went for the color TV. Because I don't think it was a big difference in price. It was, when they first came out. And, so it was, they wanted that. They had to pay the money, and they tap into the different frequency that was out there. And as we go and evolve, and I think we've gone way beyond color TV now, mate. Like, you get into remote viewing, and you get into recognizing synchronicities, because everybody has synchronicities in their life every day. They just don't necessarily see or hear them. It's like the FM radio signal's going right past your door. If you haven't got your FM radio turned on, you're not picking up the signal, and so you're recognizing synchronicities every day of, messages there. Because my thing is, I believe there are invisible, benevolent forces there who love us, who are constantly trying to get messages to us. And synchronicities is a big way that they're trying to get them to us. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you ever read that book or heard about the Celestine Prophecy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So last week I did a 2-hour Zoom session with the author's daughter. And it was all about synchronicities. So it was really cool because I see all sorts of, courses for all sorts of things, but it's the first one I'd ever come across specifically for synchronicities. So it was great. And I thought I knew most stuff about it, but I thought it would be a cool thing to attend. But yeah, I learned some stuff. It was a different angle for the whole thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that book probably 15 years ago for me was pivotal in a big change in my life after I read that one. It was,
That,
just
funny thing is, I downloaded the audiobook on my soul journey to Peru of the Celestine Prophecy.
Right.
So that's what I was listening to on the plane the whole way there.
Cool.
So it's so fitting.
Yes.
It was cool.
Yeah. And you're getting ready for like some big fight in the jungle.
Yeah.
The men in black chasing you around. Yeah.
Yeah. It all took place there.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that story. I think it was probably divinely downloaded into James Redfield's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was several others after that, which I devoured those as well. I think there was at least 3 other books. There was the 11th scroll and the 12th scroll and that sort of thing. So
cool.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I loved our chat this morning. Well, this morning for me, I don't know what time day is it for you?
It is almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. All right. Okay. And
on Wednesday. Day before you guys, you're
right. Yeah, so Thursday for me. And we're adjusting to that too. A day or 2 days or 3 days ago, our son and daughter-in-law flew to Rome. And that was a bit of a circus, with all the challenges happening in the world. Like this is April 2026 is right now with the, all the stuff and of course their flight was via Doha in, United Arab and so their flight changed like 25 times in the 2 weeks prior to them going because of all the stuff over there with Iran.
For sure.
But they ended up still flying through there. They had a 1.5 hour layover.
Wow.
In the United Arab Emirates. But everything else, it was a lot of different changes of flights, but they still went that way. And then we just woke up this morning and they've sent us a couple of photos of them at the Trevi Fountain in Rome and somewhere else.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So, so they're there and made it and everything.
Cool.
So is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to mention? Anything where?
No, I think we're good. I think we hit everything pretty well.
Yeah, hit the high points. Very good. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lance, for your time, attention, and for all the sharing, and to show the men out there listening how different the world is. Everybody, we've got a spiritual fighter, and it's not, years ago, not something I would have thought we'd have the same in one body. One entity is doing this stuff, and it's all for good reason, because like I say, you're reaching a lot of people, training men and bringing this to them with the physical side as well. So it's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Doug. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.